Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Q&Ray. I've got Jacob, who I met at the StrongFit Fundamentals course in Minnesota a couple weeks ago. And so, in case you're new to this show, one thing that we do is I'm trying to give away 30 minutes of my time every week to help coaches. You can come with video to analyze, you can come with questions, whatever you want to do. 30 minutes, we're going to put 30 minutes on the clock, and we're just going to go for it. All right, so Jacob, your 30 minutes starts now. What questions do you have for me?
Sweet. So one of my biggest questions was, after going to the StrongFit seminar in Minnesota and meeting you and hearing your story, I also watched your video on the StrongFit YouTube channel.
Huh?
It was like 25 minutes long.
So you're talking about the
So
video where I talk about how to implement StrongFit in a CrossFit gym?
correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So that has been like the number one question that's been burning in my mind
Yeah.
since going to the seminar because
Yeah.
you still know that people enjoy CrossFit and they
Uh-huh.
still want to do CrossFit,
Yeah.
and you don't want to take that away from them and just give them something else, right? So it's like, how do you give them the best of both worlds? How do you introduce something new but also keep what they like?
Yeah. So
Right.
let's talk about what StrongFit is and what it's not. Okay.
Right.
So StrongFit is a set of principles. It's not a methodology.
Right.
So you can apply StrongFit to CrossFit, Olympic weightlifting, Zumba, golf, baseball, anything that you're doing, you can apply the StrongFit principles to. That's the core of it. And so what I would say, and I said this, that was about a year ago, May 2019 is when we shot that video. What I will tell every coach now who goes to the StrongFit seminar and then goes back to their CrossFit gym. In fact, we had a guy that was at your seminar who works at who teaches the CrossFit seminars with me. And so he's asking the same question. How do we implement this in the gym without taking away the things? Because we don't want to take away the CrossFit. Because CrossFit in itself is awesome. There's that one adage that we teach in the seminar. It's the needs of your grandma and a Navy SEAL differ in degree, not kind.
Right.
And so the whole point of CrossFit is to give fitness to everybody, wherever they're at and whatever season they're at, right? So how do you do that using the StrongFit principles? And it's the same thing I said in that last call, in that video, was very carefully. Um, I don't even, I'll give you, there was one time I taught a level 2 seminar with someone who straight up told me, I hate Julian, he's a dick, blah, 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 da, da, da. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I led the workout for the level 2 seminar. Have you been to the level 2 seminar?
I have not.
Okay, so in the level 2 seminar, basically the level 1 we teach you the knowledge about CrossFit, right?
Right.
The level 2 we teach you how to teach the knowledge of CrossFit. And one of the things that we do is we show you how to run a class.
Mhm.
How do you run a class? Like, this is what a 60-minute class should look like, the whiteboard session, the workout, all the things. And you know what I
Yeah.
did? Is I incorporated the StrongFit stuff into the warm-ups.
Yeah.
Did not say what it was. I said, hey guys, right now we're going to we're going to prepare for the overhead position. So here's a
Right.
couple drills we're going to do to prepare you for the overhead position. Okay, now we're going to do a kettlebell swing. Let's work on that hinge. So things like that, like sprinkle the things in. Most
Right.
people don't care how the sausage is made. They just don't want to hurt, right?
Right.
So, and here's the thing too, like you have to be really careful because, like I said, not everyone cares how the sausage is made. And we talked about this in the first episode of Q and Ray. At the level 1 seminar, we teach you the very basics of coaching. We
Right.
teach you the cues like knees out, chest up, heels
Right.
down, hips back, all those things,
Right.
like position, which is, I always say it's good, better, best. You know,
Mm-hmm.
someone who's squatting with their knees caving in, that's bad. Someone squatting with their knees out is good. But remember,
Right.
it's not what you do, it's how you do it. When you cue someone knees out, that's a corrective thing in the moment, but it's not a corrective thing overall. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah,
the,
it's
the
not long term.
yeah, the knee dives in because there was lack of tension.
Mhm.
So the body's looking for tension somewhere and it stops when it finds the tension. And in the case of the knee out in the squat, they normally what you'll find is people will find the tension in the groin or that inside head of the hamstring that we talk about to create the stability in the squat is not strong
Right.
enough, so it has to shorten to find tension, right? So when you
Right.
say knees out, it's a good cue. Is it a better cue? No. The better cue would be to teach someone how to use their hamstring so they could squat and stabilize with a hamstring,
Right.
right? But you don't always get people who want to learn that. So you start with the ones who want to, and this is something I stole from my friend Michael O'Brien. We call him MOB. You water the flowers.
Right.
So in your gym, when you're applying the StrongFit principles, I never say the word StrongFit. I never say, guys, we're gonna do StrongFit stuff now. Like no, like yeah, no. It's like literally, hey guys, we're gonna squat right now. Actually, okay, for example, yesterday we're bench pressing. Hey guys, we're gonna bench press right now. A couple of muscles I want you to focus on while you're doing the bench press. I want you to feel it here, here, here. Definitely not here. If you're feeling it here, that's gonna be a bad day, right? And like one girl in particular, Haley, at the late class, she's like, "Yeah, my shoulder hurts. I can't bench. It sucks really bad." I'm like, "All right." So for the warm up, I had them grab a med ball. I said, "Okay, here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna take the med ball. You're gonna squeeze it between your forearms here and here like this, and we're gonna play a song. Whenever you hear this word, you're going to do a squat while still squeezing the ball. Now, the intention here is I need you to feel it maybe here on your forearm, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. Not here, and definitely not here. Okay?
Right.
If you start to feel it there, you're doing something wrong. Let's focus on turning on these muscles here. Not even halfway into the song, people are crying and they're like, "Oh my god, my specs are burning, I can't breathe, oh jeez." And I'm like, I'm just like, okay, cool. Now that we're done, are you guys all very aware of your pecs and your teres and this? Okay, this is the stabilizing muscle that we need to feel when we get to the top of the bench. Okay, I do not want you to feel it here. And case in point, Haley has shoulder pain here. So we got them firing. I kind of got her to feel where she's supposed to feel it in the movement. And she's like, this is crazy. Like, I didn't think I was going to be able to bench today. We were able to take the tension off of the rock. I mean, pain, guys. I mean, this is really important. Pain often is an indicator that you're doing something wrong, right? It's like a family. This part of the shoulder is not supposed to be a primary piece in the bench. Like we want pecs, we want lats, we want teres. Those are the ones that really do the movement and the stabilization. This part is going to come into play when the other stuff's not doing its job. Right? That's why pain comes up. So what did we do with Haley? I helped her turn on the muscles she's supposed to feel, and I got her to feel the movement the way she's supposed to feel it, and she didn't have any shoulder problems yesterday. It was crazy. Like she literally the first like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to bench very much today. Like my shoulder's bothering me. I'm like, all right, we'll work with it. And I'm like, hey, just try this, feel this. She's like, okay, now push yourself back into the bench. And she's like, oh. I'm like, do you like that? She's like, yeah, that's way better. So you see how I applied StrongFit principles to a class. Never once said the word StrongFit. Never once said torque. People are like, we're going to create external rotation with internal torque. And da-da-da. I'm like, no, you don't need to give them that stuff. Like, just get, like, the biggest thing, I stole this from Richard, was that I find it more valuable when people are able to feel what the movement's supposed to feel like versus me have to look at them.
Right.
Because I've learned firsthand that, I've been on seminar staff since 2015. Yeah, 2015. And I was used as a demo all the time because I'm a pretty good demo. But I was creating the positions but not creating the correct tension. And when Richard did my assessment, he's like, dude, you can't hinge. And like, what do you mean? He's like, dude, you're doing everything with your low back. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, that explains why my back always blows up when I do Diane. He's like, yeah. And so he helped me feel what the movement's supposed to feel like, and now my back doesn't blow up when I do Diane. But I got really good at faking the shape because I'm an athlete. I'm going to figure out how to do the thing at whatever cost because I know that's the end goal. Versus if I create the right tension where it's supposed to be, I'm going to create the right shape. And I think that's an important thing to understand is that, like, position that doesn't mean tension, but creating correct tension will give you the correct position. And so it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? But yeah, going back to like beginners, it's like, okay, they don't really care about that stuff. They just want to stay safe. And truth be told, the people who like don't care about how the sausage is made, a lot of them, they're not going to push very hard anyway. And the ones that do push really hard are going to break themselves and then later come back like, hey, can you help me? And then that's when you fix them. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the first practical
Absolutely.
application of how do you incorporate it. You do it very carefully, and I call it sprinkling. Just sprinkle
Hmm.
little
Yeah.
things.
Little dashes here and there.
Yeah, just little dashes here and
Yeah.
there. Start winning people's trust where they start to see, oh, this works. And then when they want more, then you pour more. Does that help?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that like I've been kind of toying around with is like doing those activations in the warm up. I've been doing a lot of songs for warm
Yeah.
ups, and people have been hating me and loving me at the same time. But and I totally noticed the difference with those who actually spend the time in the warm up and like feel it, and then they're like, "Wow, I feel a huge difference." And then those who are like, "Oh yeah, that burned," but like I'm just gonna do my shoulder press the way I've been doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so it totally makes sense to like win over that smaller population, and then the other more stubborn athletes will kind of follow along,
Mm-hmm.
which is what I was thinking about, right? Because we always have those stubborn folks that are like, knees out, I'm doing it. I don't know what you're talking about, kind of thing.
Yeah, but meanwhile they're collapsing their heels and or collapsing their arches and their feet are and their feet are spun way
Yeah.
out, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Um, my friend MOB always says water the flowers.
okay.
Water the
I like
flowers,
that.
tend the weeds. Like don't completely blow them off. Like be there. I said this in the last call last week that it's more important to maintain good relationships than to be right all the time. You know,
Hmm.
like a long time ago, I was kind of it's this way or the highway, and
Right.
people would quit because they didn't want to be around me because I was just a stick in the mud. So what I learned
Right.
was like, hey, if I push them so hard that they leave, then I lose my opportunity to help them. So what you
Right.
do is you kind of like, oh, okay, you don't want to do it, that's fine, and then you just keep them safe, give them what they want, and then hope for an opportunity later for them to come and ask you.
Right. Yeah, I really like that. And that's something that like I was scared about too is like coming back from the seminar and then like being so abrasive with like
Well,
wanting to share the knowledge that it's like people are like, dude, like shut up, like I don't care kind of thing.
yes.
Um, so it's thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that is a good mentality to have.
Yeah, the hardest thing that I was sharing this yesterday. So I don't know if you know this, but I have like a coaches mentoring program. We meet 5 times a week, and yesterday in our call, I was sharing with them because a lot of them were just like so frustrated because they work with people who don't want to get better and this, that, and the other. And I go, dude, can you imagine like, 'cause people are like, man, like I'm watching other coaches in my gym like coach and they're totally terrible and blah 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 blah, and it's like, dude, can you imagine um like it's can you imagine, like for me, I visit a lot of gyms all the time, and so
Right.
I see all of the craziness, and it's like, it's very hard for me to just shut my mouth and not
Yeah.
say anything because I want to help, and I don't. But what I've learned the hard way is that if your help isn't solicited, it's not really going to be accepted very well, and oftentimes you run the risk of burning a bridge that way. So it's really difficult. I'll drop into gyms and stuff, and I'm just like, oh, biting my tongue, or seeing stuff on Instagram. Of course, like it's just like, oh my God, why are you bragging about that? You look like you're gonna die. Snatch PR, that doesn't even look like a snatch anymore. What do you mean? Like I could easily go on Instagram right now and just like start messaging everyone I see, like, hey man, you need to do this. But unless I'm invited, I don't do it anymore.
Right.
And one thing that I do in my classes too is I'm kind of passive aggressive and sassy with this. Like at the level 1 seminar, I go, hey guys, we're talking about stance, grip, and position on the snatch. This is the hook grip. If you choose not to use a hook grip, you're also choosing not to lift heavy weight. It's your life though, no big deal. And I do the same thing with like the deadlift. I go, hey guys, you might want to like really try and lift with your back and arch into this really big position here. I'm gonna encourage you guys to stay tight and push through and squeeze your butt cheeks together to stand up all the way. And also, I'm gonna encourage you to lower the bar down with control because that's how you're gonna get strong. But if you want to, you can drop the bar from the top. That's fine. Like it's your life, And I kind of throw it at them that way. But at the same time, you
Right.
see what I'm doing is I'm being sarcastic, but also explaining to them why I want them to do it that way and how it's going to benefit them.
Right.
But find your ways to kind of sprinkle the stuff in, and like I like to just offer it as an option.
Right.
rather than being hard and fast, like you must do it this way. You don't own the gym you work at, right?
Right.
So one thing that I learned, because at my gym, when I was running my gym, I could do whatever I want, say whatever I wanted anytime I wanted to. And if I
Right.
pissed off a client, it's like I didn't want them anyway. But what I've learned working for other other gyms is like I don't have that. I don't have that freedom. So sometimes it's just like, oh, you know what? Just keep them happy, keep them coming back.
Right.
So it's definitely an adventure doing it that way, and it
Yeah.
teaches you to be a lot more diplomatic.
Hmm.
So again, just be careful and just yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And like I like that idea of like presenting them with options so then that way it's like their choice, right?
yeah, it's their choice.
And yeah.
Yeah,
Um and then so my other question that was really in my mind was hearing your experience of your gym of how quickly you went from like not being in the industry to then just like head coach and like
yeah,
owning a gym. And I very much felt like that. Like I started off just as a weightlifter and super curious and wanting to help people there.
hmm,
And then within a year I was in the head coach position and I'm like what do
what
I
do I
do
do
here?
now?
Yeah. So I was just curious of like how you dealt with jumping straight into that experience and like what kind of hat did you put on
Yeah.
to like really fill the role.
So for me, I have a very addictive personality. Like once I get into something, I'm all in. And for me, I it wasn't that big of a transition because I've been a teacher my entire life. You know,
Right.
I can remember as young as 8 years old, like playing around with like my Legos and things and teaching how to do things. Like, so we're gonna do this and this and this. Like I would do my little own infomercials by myself. So it's always been something in my DNA where I like to take complex things and make it simpler for people.
Right.
But as far as taking over a gym and all the things, like I am just a professional learner. And when I'm doing something, I'll dive straight in and I'll look and try to figure out all the different nuances for all the things. So, truth be told, when I first started running my gym, I spent the first year or two just learning how to coach. I didn't know what that looked like. You know, so I basically devoured everything I could find from Cali Starrett, so movement, like mobility WOD, all the things. And then I got to a point where I was like, well, I need to learn how to squat and stuff. So Cody Bergner was 10 minutes down the road at CrossFit Invictus, so I joined Invictus, and I went there, and I would ask CJ stuff too, and like kind of observing their classes, how they run their classes, and I had a coach, and then I started working with Teresa Larson, who was a physical therapist. I became a PT aide because I really cared about movement, and
Yeah.
she worked for Kelly Starrett too, so that was kind of another indirect way to connect that way. And
Yeah.
I just what I would say for you is start to just pick a niche, like something that you want to focus on to get really good at, and do that for like a year or two, and then switch. So for
Right.
me, I think looking back, I think I first spent the first year and some change focusing on mobility and what that meant. And then I spent the next year doing Olympic weightlifting with Cody. And then I started diving into gymnastics. And then I started diving into the business side of things, like sales. Like I always thought that sales was so scummy and like sleazy, and I always would think of it like the dirty car salesman, you know? And then I met my friend Ryan, who came in and taught me how to do sales a different way. And truth be told, the way that he taught me to do sales is how I do coaching now.
Really.
Basically, coaching is sales. You're trying to
Right.
get people to understand that, hey, you're going to do this thing and this is why it's going to benefit you. And I'm here to be your guide and help you get there. And like a good salesperson, really, like what you do, and this is how I coach too, is you always start with a needs analysis, right? You find out what does the client need, what does the potential client need, why are they there, what do they want, what is it, how is it going to benefit them to get what they want? And what you might find is that they're what they say they want is really not what they want. There's actually another want that kind of supersedes that want. Like a really simplified version of this is, so this guy says, "Hey, I want to lose some weight." Okay, so what will that do for you? Oh, I'll feel more confident in my clothes. Oh, okay, cool. So how would that affect you in other areas of your life? Well, I want to get a girlfriend, and you're like, okay, so we've whittled down his actual why to he wants to get laid. You know, and then now it's like, okay, now that I know his why, I can coach him on that bit. Hey, dude, if you do these burpees right now, like that girl's gonna think you're so hot. You know, things like that, like stupid things like that. Like you,
Yeah.
that's sales. That's all it is.
Right.
Like you find their pressure point. What is it that they want, and why do they want it? And then
Right.
you could do this two different ways. You can be manipulative and mean, or you can actually help them and say, hey, this is gonna take you where you want to go. I know
Right.
that this thing I'm gonna make you do is gonna be uncomfortable, and you're gonna sweat a lot, and you're probably gonna not look very graceful doing it, and you're gonna hate me for it. But after you're done, you're gonna feel pretty good about it, right? They're like,
Right.
yeah. So that's another really important thing to understand is that as a coach, you're a salesperson and a psychologist, also. You know, like
All
you,
encompassing.
it's all encompassing. You need to get to a point where you are watching. I shared this in last week's call. You can have 6 people walk into the gym, right? And every single one of them gets a different version of you.
Mm.
This person thinks he knows everything. So you're just going to kind of, okay, you can have what you want, but then look for small ends on how you can cue them. This person
Right.
is so not confident in themselves. So you help them find small wins, help them feel like they accomplished something. This person's got anxiety through the roof, so you just help them feel safe and make sure they leave with a smile on their face. This person over here is a freaking rock star athlete and just wants to keep getting better, so you kind of help them work through that. This other person over here is a complete train wreck, but will do anything you say, and you cue them too. Does that make sense? You see how
Yeah.
every single person has a different why and a different reason they're in the gym that day? And
Absolutely.
I give them a different version of me. Like you, that's what coaching is. Coaching is not, all right, guys, there's what's on the workout. We're going to do this, 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 this. Grab your barbell. 3, 2, 1, go. Standing here with my PVC pipe looking at the clock.
Right.
That's not coaching. And if you think that's coaching, you're wrong. So, yeah, that's how. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. That
Pick one
helps a
thing at
lot.
a time and dive in. Like, it's absolutely overwhelming at first, right? You know, the reason why I started my coaches group was because I wanted to create an environment that I wish I had when I was in your place. Because in my when I was in your place, I didn't have anyone. I was like, I took over my gym because we are $15,000 in debt on the rent, and my name was on the lease. And so it's like I either shut down the business or I end up paying like a whole bunch of money for this business that I helped start. And so I was like, oh, let's just try. And
Yeah.
so um, basically what I would do is find a community of other of coaches who are like-minded with you and want to learn and grow, and then just keep challenging yourself.
Yeah.
Get a coach. Every coach needs a coach.
Right.
So that's yeah.
Yeah, and that helps a lot because it helps provide some clarity as to like what the next step is, and
Yeah.
not feeling like you have to figure it all out on your own, right? And
Exactly.
that's something that like as on a personal level that like I have to work on, which is like finding groups and reaching out to people who are there and are in the same position and
Mhm.
see what their experience is like and how I can apply that to my experience.
Yep.
Um,
So
So
our Tuesday calls. So the way our weekly calls go, Monday we talk about a movement. We call it Movement Monday. Thursday
nice.
is our video analysis day. Friday is another day where we just like, hey, bring your whiteboard session, bring your programming. We'll take a look at it together. But Tuesdays is our funnest day. We call it Check-in Tuesday, and it literally is where coaches just come in and vent about their gym owner, their other coaches they work with or members, and like it's funny because like, do you remember Bianca from the seminar?
Yeah.
So she joined my group. She comes in and she's just like,
No way.
"Oh my God, there's like 90 million people who have my same problems." And so there's that there's that element too. It's like you just need to find your people. You know, I'm not saying join mine, but join something. Find something where you can find community and like, oh God, I don't know what to do. Like, da, 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 da. Like, because it sucks when you gotta do it alone. I mean, that's why CrossFit's
Right.
so awesome because you have the community component. Yeah,
yeah, oh,
find your people.
that's huge. Yeah, I'm definitely going to take that and run with it after this call, where it's just like it's like you got to do it. So definitely.
Cool.
Yeah.
What other questions do you have?
Um, so it's kind of along that head coach thing, and I don't know if you had to experience this, but and it might be the same thing that you apply to the members, but it's like, how do you then apply yourself to your other coaches? So I'm obviously not the only coach at our gym,
Got it.
and I'm, out of everyone there, I'm one of the youngest,
Yep.
and like I'm the superior, in like in terms of titles. So it's like, how do I become this leader figure for you guys?
Okay, great question. So how do you? Okay, let me ask you how the other coaches that work there, are they hobby coaches or are they like career coaches?
Yeah, I'd say they're hobby coaches, like they're part-time coaches. They were members before, and they're like, "Hey, I would love to start coaching." And then,
Okay.
the owner, yeah,
Yeah, so the hardest part is when people are just hobby coaches, they often lack the motivation to really start investing and have the same level of commitment as you do.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Like some of them,
Yeah.
I don't know how it's set up at your gym, but there are a lot of coaches that I work with where the other coaches on staff, they work for trade,
Mm.
and those people are less likely to invest the time to get better and invest in themselves as coaches.
Mm.
Um, I think that the one thing that I would say that worked for me, at least in my gym, and I hope that my coaches from before they'll chime in, maybe comment below, that like, yeah, I found this valuable was I did weekly coaches meetings. And at the time, I wasn't making enough money to pay them to be there, but I wanted to. But I made an effort to make sure that it was valuable to them in some way, where they wanted to be there. In fact, I had to fire one of my coaches because he was double dipping. He was working at another gym because they're able to give him more hours, and then he would double book himself and not show up to the classes he was supposed to coach for me. And I was like, well,
Ooh.
dude, and like I gave him the opportunity to fire himself, and he did. And what was really cool though was he asked me, he's like, hey, can I still come to the coaches meetings? Can I still be part of the? I'm like, yeah, dude, absolutely. Like, I'm not firing you because like you're terrible. It's like I understand that you need more hours. I'm not holding that against you, but I thought that was cool that he still wanted to be part of that because I brought value to them.
Right.
So in my coaches meetings, what I did was that I said, hey, we're gonna talk about the basic nitty gritty, whatever. Like, how are these people doing? What's new in the gym? Because they're my eyes and ears. But at the
Right.
same time, I made sure to give them at least 15 to 30 minutes of investment into them as people and as coaches.
Mm.
I wanted them to feel like, hey, I care about you as a person, and being around me. There's three types of leaders, right? There's authoritative leader. You follow them because they happen to have the title. You have
Mm.
the charismatic leader, the person that you follow because they're just so charismatic and like you just follow them off a cliff, right? And then there's the type of leader that we call it the developmental leader, where they hang out with you because they feel like they're gonna be better just by being around you.
Right.
So that's what I aspire to be. I aspire to be the third one. And I feel
Right.
like with the third one, like for me, I'm not the most charismatic person. I know that. You know, I know people who like don't know two craps about anything, but they've got so much charisma that people follow them and want to be around them all the time. And I'm just like, well, that kind of sucks. Um, but people follow me because they know that being around me, that I'm gonna help them be better.
Mm.
And then sometimes I lose people because they're not really committed to being uncomfortable.
Right.
So there's that. You might run into people in your staff that they're not committed to getting uncomfortable, which is what's necessary to learn.
Mm.
So you might have that challenge, that roadblock. But for the ones who want to learn, like I said, even with coaches and athletes, as a head coach, you're coaching athletes and coaches. It's like you water the flowers.
Right.
Spend your time on the ones who want to learn, and then hopefully the other ones will pick up too.
Mhm.
Another thing that's helpful is if the gym owner really talks you up. I know that you're chronologically younger than a lot of the other coaches, right? So they probably look down on you like, oh, he's just a kid. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Right? Is that the feeling you're having?
Yeah, and that's like, no one's outright said it, but like that's like my own.
Yeah, but you kind of get this feeling like, oh, they're rolling their eyes at you when you say this, that, and the other, because what could this kid know, right?
Yeah.
Um, my encouragement to you would be to just find ways to bring them value,
Mhm.
to help. And it's sad, but sometimes you kind of have to coddle egos a little bit. So it's like where you become their friend, and then you start to show them value that way. I've worked with people who are older than me and think they know all the things, and like again, it's all in the delivery, right? You can't just like be come in like a wrecking ball unless you have the charisma to do so. Some people have the charisma. My friend Mike, okay, my friend Mike has so much charisma, but dude, the guy would come in like a freaking wrecking ball, and like as an example, okay. So in a previous life, I was a youth leader at a church, right?
Mhm.
And I would sometimes, and one of the guy that took over for me after I left, he was a guy that I sort of just I kind of mentored him and stuff. And then I would come and hang out with the group every once in a while, and some of the kids would just walk up to me and just open up to me like crazy, open up to me. And then Mike would be like, "Dude, how come they don't talk to me?" And I go, "Because they don't feel safe with you, man. Like you're always just like." He was like the king of conversations. Like, "Hey, I need to talk to you," and I'm like, and he goes, "What was I gonna say to you?" I'm like, "Okay." So you're just sitting there waiting to be like bashed on, like, oh, versus
Yeah.
the kids, like they'd come to me because they knew I wouldn't judge them. I would just kind of listen to them and I go, "All right, well, what do you think this is, this, and this?" And they're like, "Okay, thank you." Versus they go to Mike and they just get beat down with a bat. I don't want to make fun of Mike too much. He's a great leader and all, but it's just different style.
Right.
You know, you need to find your style.
Mhm.
And sometimes the hard truth of it is sometimes the people that work on your staff are not your people.
Mhm.
For my staff, there were three things that had to be in place to work for me. Okay? And there are three things that I value above all else is service, humility, and teachability. I didn't care if you were the greatest mover. Like one of my coaches that worked for me, Aaron, not the greatest mover, but dang, that guy cared.
Yeah.
And it's hard to teach that. Like the reason why I asked him to coach for me was that he was that member. He came to me from Invictus. Okay, he did the open one Friday with us, and I ripped him a new one because he just wasn't squatting below parallel. He wasn't locking out. He wasn't doing this, that, and the other. And he just thought he was so cool because he used to train. He trained at Invictus, and I was like, and afterwards, she's like, "Dude, no one's ever coached me like that before." And I'm like, "Yeah, man. Like, I mean, not to knock on Invictus, but Invictus you'll have classes of 18 or more people.
Right.
It's harder to coach that many people versus when you have 8 people in my class.
Mhm.
So there's that. But he just can't. He ended up coming to me because he liked the smaller classes. He liked that I coached him. But it was a very frustrating first 2 or 3 months for him. Like there was one time where he kind of just had a meltdown. He walks outside. And he's like, "I can't do anything right. I can't do this. I can't do that." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Dude, did I say any of those things to you?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Well, why are you putting that on yourself? Like, we're gonna get better one day at a time, one thing at a time. It's gonna be fine. Just come back in." And like I just kept pouring into him, and then it got to a point where like if I said something, he did it. Like he's just like, "Hey man, I want you to work on this to get your squat better." And that guy, he'd spend every day for 10, 15 minutes working on that thing. And then you know what he did after that? He, anytime there was a new member come in the gym, he would be like, "Hey, I'm Aaron. How can I help you? Like, are you new? Can I?" I was like, "All right, man." And he just service,
Right.
humility. Like he like I mean, he came in like all kind of like, "Oh, I'm a mix. I know what I'm doing."
Yeah.
But like at the end of the day, he was like, "Dude, okay." He understood he wasn't the best, but man, he cared about people, and when I coached him, he listened.
Right.
The only intern that I fired and never made it through my program was some guy who thought he knew everything, and he
Mhm.
didn't fit the culture anyway. Like
Right.
all of my coaches, service first, humility, coachability. It's a lot easier to run a team when everyone is like-minded in that sense. When you have someone who thinks they know everything and doesn't know everything, then that's kind of poisonous. So
Right.
I don't know that you have the power to let go of the coaches that don't mesh, but it's like I said earlier, find your people, and everything works a lot better.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
And I think that's something that like I have to work on, which is finding my style as that leader figure to
Yep.
help kind of lasso everybody in,
Mm-hmm.
right? As opposed to being this you know not all over the place, but no clear voice
Right.
during the meetings, right? so to really just kind of hone in, lasso everybody, and find my style that way, and I think that would help a lot.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's,
for
yeah.
sure. Here's what I would encourage you to do on that point, okay? Number one, do you have a vision statement?
No.
Okay, so your homework after this call, you're gonna write down a vision statement for you as a person and for you as a coach. For me, they're the same. They're literally the same with a little bit of difference. So my vision is to make people better. So to make it so that when people leave my presence, they leave better than they came.
Right.
And that's my general vision when it comes to coaching. Hey, I want people to move better than when they came, feel better than they came. You see how it's all kind of congruent?
Yeah.
And so a vision is something that you want to do, something you want to see in the future.
Right.
And then come up with a mission statement. So your mission statement is how you do the thing. Your vision statement's your why. The mission statement is your how. So for me, one of my visions is I want to create a world where people can go and be coached by awesome people who care about them, are humble and teachable. And how do I do that? I do that by running a coach's mentoring program where I coach people to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then what are your core values? My core values are humility, service, and coachability. I expect that of myself and I expect that of the people that work for me.
Right.
And so once you know who you are, then you have your identity. And your life, everything you do, everything you say, everything flows out of who you are. And if you don't know who you are and you don't know what you're committed to, it's really hard to go do the things.
Right.
So, and I mean, and another thing too is as you're learning and going through this overwhelming process of being a leader in a new place, it's like, okay, is what I'm doing contributing to my vision, mission, and is it congruent with my core values? And if it's not, it's probably not something you should be doing.
Mm.
Make sense?
Yeah. Right.
Cool.
Yeah, that's an awesome homework assignment. I'll definitely get going on that.
Awesome. Thanks, Jacob. So,
Yeah.
quick thing, for those of you guys who are just tuning in, if you want to be part of this experience, hit me up on Instagram, on just DM me. And what I'm doing is I'm offering 30 minutes of my time once a week to a coach who's learning, growing, to ask questions. Or if you guys have video you want to analyze and look at with me live on the call, you can send that to me and we can talk about that. So, thanks, Jacob, for being on episode 2.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was really great and helpful.
Yeah, if you need anything, just DM me on Instagram. Happy to answer questions. All
For
right.
sure. I appreciate it, Ray.
Take care, man.
You too.
All right. Bye.